The Silver Ridge estate didn't just glow, it radiated the kind of wealth that made people straighten their posture the moment they stepped out of their cars. Lanterns lined the long stone walkway like a runway meant for victories that had already been pre-celebrated. The fountains shimmered beneath soft evening lights, sending ripples across the marble base that reflected the golden glow dancing across the courtyard. The estate had always been the chosen venue for Washington State's class of 2015 reunions, not because it held sentimental value, but because it fed their collective ego. 10 years out of high school, and most of them still clung to the hierarchy they built as teenagers. Tonight, under the perfect lighting and curated atmosphere, they strutted like they were on a red carpet crafted just for their success. Expensive perfume mingled with the soft classical music drifting through hidden speakers. Laughter spilled from the open double doors, loud, practiced, and full of stories polished just enough to impress strangers. Graduates arrived in shining cars, their steps light with the confidence of people who believed their lives had unfolded exactly the way they once bragged they would. Near the entrance, 4 voices rose above the rest, not because they were the happiest, but because they believed the night belonged to them. Brandon Keller stood with his back slightly arched, adjusting the sleeve of his designer jacket as if dust dared to land on fabric that cost more than someone's monthly rent. He laughed louder than necessary, throwing around stories about properties he closed before breakfast, making sure anyone within 10 meters overheard. Savannah Reed held her phone up at various angles, her ring light clipped to the top like a crown. She greeted people only when her camera wasn't recording, her smile wider for the lens than for actual human beings. Her latest vlog title, Reuniting with My Class After 10 Years, was already drafted, and she was determined to capture every angle that made her look like life had turned her into something worth envying. Next to her stood Carter Miles, adjusting his tie with the precision of a man who had practiced charm the same way he practiced closing statements in courtrooms. He had that polished lawyer, perfect smile, the kind that revealed nothing but suggested everything. He nodded at classmates with calm superiority, as though he were granting them the privilege of remembering him. And then there was Logan Parrish, quiet, calculating, and annoyingly efficient at turning everything into data. He scrolled through the digital guest list on his phone, analyzing names the way he analyzed quarterly earnings. To him, people weren't classmates. They were benchmarks, opportunities, statistics. He measured value in silence, his eyes scanning as though he were choosing stocks to invest in rather than former students to mingle with. Together, they formed an unspoken monarchy, 4 people who had once ruled the high school halls with confidence, cruelty, and the kind of charm that made their behavior socially acceptable. They were laughing about who had aged well, who had fallen off, and who had exceeded expectations when Savannah suddenly froze. Her hand, still holding the phone in a perfect influencer grip, paused midair. Her eyes narrowed, then widened. "No way," she muttered. "Avery Cole, seriously." Brandon's eyebrows shot up. "You're joking." Carter turned, smirk already forming. "Well, this just got interesting." Logan tilted his phone slightly, already scrolling for Avery's name like he was confirming a rumor in a company database. "She checked in. She's here." The mockery came instantly, effortlessly, almost joyfully. Brandon let out a bark of laughter that turned a few heads. "What's she doing here? Isn't this place a little above her tax bracket?" Savannah scoffed, flipping her hair over her shoulder. Watch her show up, looking exactly like she did in high school, lost and awkward. Carter leaned forward slightly. Maybe she thought things would be different now. Logan's eyes sharpened behind his glasses. "People don't change that much." Their smiles stretched, predatory and entertained. It wasn't enough that they had dominated their teenage years, they wanted confirmation that nothing had changed. That Avery would still be the girl they whispered about, stepped around, ignored, or mocked depending on their mood. And with a single shared grin, arrogant, synchronized, and dripping with the same old high school poison, they decided that tonight would be Avery Cole's final humiliation. But what none of them knew was that Avery Cole had become someone the world should never underestimate. Inside the Silver Ridge estate, the reunion had settled into a rhythmic hum, clinking glasses, polished laughter, and familiar faces wearing unfamiliar lives. Chandeliers dripped golden light onto the ballroom floor, where clusters of classmates huddled into small circles, competing quietly over who had done better, earned more, married well, traveled far. For the four self-appointed monarchs, Brandon, Savannah, Carter, and Logan, the night had transformed into something else entirely. Not a reunion, a mission. "Okay," Savannah said as they entered the main hall, lowering her voice but not her excitement. "If Avery's here, she has to be somewhere near the check-in desk, probably looking lost." Brandon chuckled, brushing a cocktail napkin across his jacket sleeve, or hiding in a corner. That'd be more her speed. They moved together like a coordinated unit, practiced, polished, and united under the same goal. Find Avery Cole, confirm she hadn't changed, and feel better about themselves. But as they navigated the crowd, something unexpected happened. People kept stopping them, not to praise them, but to talk about someone else. "Did you hear Avery came back?" One woman whispered to her girlfriend. "Someone said she's been gone overseas for years," a man murmured. Another person added, "Yeah, I heard military. The word floated through the air like smoke, hard to miss, impossible to ignore." Savannah blinked. "Military? Avery? No way." Carter's confident smile faltered for a millisecond. "People join the military all the time," he said casually. "Doesn't mean anything." Logan, however, stopped analyzing the guest list and began analyzing the room. If she served, her social media would say something. She barely posted after graduation. That's because she was embarrassed. Savannah snapped back, though her voice carried a thin crack of uncertainty. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. She was always awkward. She didn't fit in. The military would have eaten her alive. "Maybe," Logan said, but even he didn't sound convinced. They continued walking, passing the photo booth, the alumni banner, the fancy charcuterie table where guests raved over overpriced imported cheese. Every step, every overheard whisper, every curious glance fed the tension building between them. Avery Cole was suddenly not just a target. She was a question, and questions made them uncomfortable. Brandon finally stopped near the grand staircase and scanned the ballroom with narrowed eyes. "Okay, where is she? We're wasting time." "She's probably..." He didn't finish, because the ballroom doors opened behind them, and a sudden wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. People turned, heads lifted, conversations paused. Savannah spun around first, her phone instinctively rising in her hand to record, but the moment she saw what everyone else saw, her mouth fell open. A woman walked in, not lost, not awkward, not anything they expected. She carried herself with a quiet, grounded confidence, the type that didn't need attention because it drew attention naturally. She moved like someone who knew exactly who she was, exactly where she was going, and exactly how to survive anything. Her posture was military straight, her gaze was clear, not aggressive, but unwavering. The black dress she wore was simple but sharp, fitting her in a way that suggested strength beneath elegance. Her hair was tied back neatly. She had the posture of discipline, the calmness of someone who had faced real storms, not the social ones people created at reunions. People stepped aside automatically as she passed, not out of awe, out of instinct. Carter's voice was barely audible. "Is that Avery?" Logan's eyes widened behind his glasses. "She looks different." "Different?" Carter whispered. "She looks like she could probably break us in half." Brandon swallowed dry. His earlier swagger leaked out like air escaping a punctured balloon. "This doesn't make sense. She wasn't like this." But Savannah's stare turned sharp and defensive, the look of someone watching her old narrative crumble. "So what? She got fit. Big deal." "No," Logan said quietly, watching her walk. "That's not gym fit. That's trained fit." The four of them stood frozen as Avery walked across the room, calmly greeting people they barely remembered. Old classmates smiled warmly at her, not politely, not out of nostalgia, but with genuine respect. Respect for Avery Cole, the girl they once overlooked, ignored, mocked. Carter exhaled slowly. This might not be the night we thought it would be. But Savannah wasn't done clinging to the past. Her jaw tightened. "No, she can't just show up like this. We're still the ones people know. We're the ones who—" Her words sliced off as Avery paused at the far side of the ballroom and looked directly at them. It wasn't a glare, it wasn't a challenge, just a calm acknowledgement, steady, unreadable, unshaken, and somehow that was worse, because for the first time in 10 years, the four people who once ruled the school felt something unfamiliar. They felt small, very small, and Avery Cole hadn't even said a word yet. Avery's steady gaze lingered for only a heartbeat before she continued walking, her footsteps soft against the gleaming ballroom floor. But that single glance shook something in Brandon, Savannah, Carter, and Logan. Not guilt, not regret, but the faint, unsettling realization that the world had shifted without their permission. "She saw us," Carter muttered. "Yeah," Brandon said quietly, "she definitely saw us." Savannah folded her arms, trying to regain control of her expression. "So what? She can stare all she wants." But her voice lacked the sharp edge she usually used for protection. She sounded rattled, a tone none of them had heard from her since high school. Around the room, classmates talked with Avery freely, almost eagerly. Some shook her hand, some hugged her, some simply stepped aside respectfully, letting her move with space and dignity. She wasn't loud, she wasn't performing, she wasn't filming anything. She didn't need to be noticed. People noticed anyway. Near the open bar, a group of alumni gathered around her as one man asked, "Avery, you were gone for so long. Where'd life take you?" She gave a small, humble smile. "Mostly overseas, Army, later, specialized training." "Oh wow," someone breathed. "Thank you for your service." Avery dipped her head politely. "Just did my part." The four former elites froze. Army. Specialized training. That single phrase felt like a rug pulled from beneath their carefully polished shoes. Savannah swallowed hard. She couldn't have. Logan cut in, voice low. "That posture wasn't normal. She's trained, Savannah. You don't get that kind of confidence from a treadmill." Brandon ran a hand through his hair, suddenly aware of how ridiculous his earlier bragging sounded. "We should, maybe just say hi, clear the air, control the narrative." Savannah snapped her eyes toward him. "We don't need to clear anything. She's the one who used to hide from us." Carter looked at her with an eyebrow raised. "And now you're the one hiding." Savannah's glare could have cut marble, but she said nothing. Across the room, Avery excused herself from the group and walked toward the edge of the ballroom, standing near a large window overlooking the estate gardens. She looked peaceful, the calm that comes from surviving storms others never even knew existed. Logan exhaled. "We're going to have to talk to her eventually." Carter nodded. "Then let's stop looking scared." They moved as a group, not confident this time, but cautious, almost hesitant, crossing the ballroom in a line that looked far more like a surrender than a confrontation. Avery heard their footsteps approaching and turned to face them. Her expression remained neutral, patient, unreadable, not hostile, not friendly, just steady. Savannah forced a tight smile. Avery, wow, you look different. Avery studied her calmly. Hi, Savannah. Brandon stepped forward awkwardly. It's been a long time, Avery nodded. It has. For the first time in their lives, the four of them felt like they were the ones being evaluated, measured, observed, quietly assessed. Carter cleared his throat. We didn't know you were in the military. I didn't tell many people. Avery replied. I left right after graduation, went straight into training, then deployments, then more advanced work. Logan asked carefully, advanced, like what? Avery took a breath, considering her words. I worked with a specialized operations unit, mostly protection, intel, and recovery missions. A lot of it still isn't something I can talk about. Immediately, all four of them stiffened. Special operations. Intel, recovery missions. This wasn't the Avery they thought they could break again tonight. This was someone who had seen things, endured things, and survived things far beyond their imagination. Savannah attempted a laugh to ease the tension. Well, look at you, totally different person. Avery's gaze didn't waver. I'm still me, just stronger. Life does that. The calm confidence in her voice made Savannah's fake smile falter. Brandon finally spoke again, softer this time. Avery, listen, if we ever made you feel you did. Avery didn't say it harshly. She said it honestly, simply, as a fact. All four flinched, but she continued, that was a long time ago, and I spent years learning how to let go of things that weighed me down. You don't have power over my past anymore. The words landed like a quiet, powerful punch, not meant to hurt them, but meant to free herself. Savannah's eyes glistened not with tears of guilt, but with the sting of being dismissed by someone she once considered beneath her. Avery glanced between the four of them, her expression softening only slightly. I don't hold grudges. I just don't repeat patterns. I hope life's been good to you. Then she gave a small nod, respectful, dismissive, complete, and walked past them. No anger, no revenge, no dramatic confrontation. Just strength, the kind earned by surviving real battles. As she disappeared back into the crowd, the four of them stood frozen, looking smaller than they ever had. Brandon exhaled. That wasn't humiliation. Carter shook his head. No, Logan nodded slowly. That was closure. But Savannah whispered the truth they all felt but didn't want to say. She didn't need to put us down. We already did that to ourselves.